It's always so weird. Hi. Hi, Tolu. Hi, Marcia. Hi, Automatic Prince. Or just Prince. Hi, guys. I'm so awkward with these things, but we're going to get started in a bit. I just want everyone to join us. In the meantime, it's 8 p.m. where I am, so I can have a glass of wine. Oh, don't tell Zuki. She hasn't joined yet. Don't tell Zuki that I'm drinking wine. Hi, Nee. So I'm going to be having a chat with LL McKinney. She's going to join us soon. But in the meantime, I guess I should tell you guys about her. She is a nerd, like a full-on nerd, you know, a gamer, loves comic books, just like me. Hi, Ndegwa. And she's written this wonderful series that's based on, it's kind of like Buffy meets Alice in Wonderland, if Buffy and Alice were black girls. The first book is called The Blade So Black, and the second one is called The Dream So Dark, and the one that's, I think it's coming out next year, is A Crown So Cursed. So, hi James, hi Zuki. So, oh, hi. Okay, so I don't know if I should like wait for a while because I see you all like jumping in. Hi Natasha. Marcy, what's the time?
8:03.
Oh. You see, Remy played music earlier, and if I play my music right now, it's going to be John Mayer, and I don't know if people love that. Okay, wait, I see L has... Hi, Al.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good. I am attempting to get my iPad to not fall over, but I am good. How are you?
I've got my phone balanced on a plant. This is the new normal, they say.
I'm using this Han Solo thing that I have for my phone, but it's not working out. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, well, I'm just waiting for people to join. I see Remy's here. Al, I should probably tell you that Remy's a troll, so when you read his comments, he's lovely though. He's lovely, but he's a troll. So when you read his comments, don't be shocked. He's just gonna be making mess there in the comments. Zuki says we
No
both look
worries.
smashing. Thank you, Zuki. So I just want to give time to like people to come in. That it's 1 p.m. there, right?
Yes, it's 1 p.m. Central Time, which makes it 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which I think is, yeah. No, like regular questions right now, just like how the world runs is not my forte at the moment.
Well, it's 8 p.m. here, so I'm just being honest and saying I have a glass of wine on standby.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all.
So are you working from home or are you back in the office?
I am working from home. I used to work at Hallmark. I wrote cards for Hallmark for a while. And I left that position fall of last year in order to pursue writing full time. So I am working from home. I have been for a while. It's not any easier right now because like I said, my brain refuses to work. So it's okay. This is fine. This is fine. We're okay.
We all feel that way. We're kind of like, okay, well, we're used to working from home, but somehow with the pandemic, it's suddenly like, but the brain won't work.
It refuses. It refuses. I'm trying to tell folks over on Twitter to join in as well. Um, and it
Yes,
refuses to
folks have to
tag.
join us.
Yes. I think I've got the at right.
Yes, Afrolit sans frontières. Yeah, listen to my little French accent, as if.
I took French in high school and my high school started when in eighth grade, which I guess is I don't know what the conversion is for other countries, what eighth grade is.
No, eighth grade. You're 13, so yeah, eighth grade.
Yes. So normally high school starts at the following year, but my high school started in eighth grade. So, and then I took French in middle school. So for like 7 years. So I used to be pretty fluent in it. And then I stopped using it and it all went away. Like all of it just went. It's gone. It's fine. It's okay.
You have to have someone to speak it to, otherwise it just kind of rots.
Yes.
Okay, so I know you are not fluent in French, but you're fluent in nerd. That I know.
Yes. Yes. I am full on fluent in nerd and geek. I sent my tweet out. It's okay. And I speak many dialects therein. I speak Star Wars, I speak Star Trek, I speak comics, both Marvel and DC and others. I speak books, I speak merchandise. I have like right now my desk is full of like little knickknacks from like the Black Panther movies and Star Wars movies and Spider-Man. So I speak very fluent geek.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, Al. When did you realize that you want to write or you can write?
I wanted to tell stories from a very early age because I didn't like you're 5, 6 years old. Books are just there, they just appear. You have no idea what goes into making books. Just like it's the same with like, oh, breakfast is on the table because mom got up 2 hours ago and, busted her butt to make it happen. It's just there. You don't know at 5, 6. So books were just around all the time. And I wanted to tell stories from then. It wasn't until middle school, grade 6, 7, 8, that I was like, I think I might want to do the making the book thing. But then my freshman year, ninth grade, I had an English teacher who told my parents that writing is a distraction for Latrice and she should stop.
An English teacher said this.
An English teacher, yes, an English teacher. We had what we call block periods. So we had 4 classes a day for about an hour and 45 minutes each. And I would finish my work early because I loved reading and I loved writing. So I would finish like an hour into it and, she wouldn't let us move ahead in the curriculum. She wouldn't let us read ahead or anything like that. So I would just do my own thing. And she got mad at that. And so she called my parents and wrote me up and sent me to the principal's office and all sorts because I was reading and writing in English class. So, and then I didn't write again until college.
Okay, but now you see there's this thing that when you are a Black woman nerd, you enjoy all of this stuff and then one day you go, hang on, why don't I see myself in all of this? When did you have that moment? What was it for you?
I realized it when I was a teenager, but I didn't know exactly what it was. Like I couldn't articulate it. I was pretty young. I want to say like 13 years old. And I noticed, I'm like, oh, so there's only one Black man in all of space when it came to like Star Wars. There's only one Black woman in all of space when it came to Star Trek. Why is there only ever one of us? Just like, when it comes to historical novels or whatever, I guess Black people weren't invented until like the 1500s. So it's the same, like we're around for 400 years And then I guess we get wiped out when it comes to like a galaxy far, far away. And then we show up in like patches of maybe 2 or 3. So I started to notice it then when there was always the token, right? And I was just sort of like, hang on, why is that a thing? Like everywhere I go, we're everywhere. Why wouldn't it be the same? Or, you know, reading Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, which is a thing you had to do, you know, in high school, we weren't there at all. You know, so I just, it was one of those things where when I became an adult, I could fully articulate it. And then my sisters started having kids, and those kids, they love nerdy stuff too. Like they're getting into Batman and Power Rangers and Star Trek and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? There are going to be at least some books in these genres that we all love. If I have anything to say about it, there's going to be at least one. Thankfully, there's now many, many more, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. So that was me in high school, was knowing that I loved science fiction and fantasy, but realizing that science fiction and fantasy did not love me back.
So when did you make the jump from, oh my goodness, I'm intentionally kind of being excluded from this, how do I include myself and people like me in it?
I want to say that it was about 10 years ago or so. I had been writing to be published, but the first 3 books that I wrote were all about white boys, because I thought that's what you had to write to be published, because that's all I read. You know, we didn't have Octavia Butler in my high school. I didn't learn about her until college. And people were like, well, did you know, did your parents introduce you to Black authors? Yes, the Black authors that they read. My parents weren't really big. They didn't do the science fiction fantasy thing. So, you know, we got Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison. You know, we got those greats.
And that's great that we know why the beloved cage bird sings, but you know, you were you were into other things.
Exactly. And you know, Octavia, to find out that there was her and others were doing this and have been doing it for so long, and here we are. Like, classic English literature has this obsession with dead old white dudes. So like that's all you read is dead old white dudes. And so I didn't see myself, so I didn't imagine myself as the hero. I didn't imagine that I was able to be the hero until, like I said, like my sisters started having kids, and they started, you know, watching the shows and reading the books and watching the movies. And, you know, kids, the following generation is always smarter than the previous generation. So they catch it on, and they're able to articulate it much sooner than me. And so I'm like, you know what? It was about 10 years ago when now they're like 13, 14, 15. I think the oldest is 16 now. But they would ask, you know, where are the Black people? But they wouldn't say it like that. They'd be like, so who am I supposed to play? You know, who can I be for Halloween? That would be how they would articulate it. And that's when I was like, you know what? We're going to do something about that. I'll give you several characters that nobody else will know who they are, but you'll have somebody to go at, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's when I intentionally made the decision to make my family and give myself permission to be the hero.
Well, you know, when people were playing Betty and Veronica, my childhood friend and I were playing Brandy and Monica. That's how bad it was.
Right? It's like, I remember loving Power Rangers as a kid, and you had the Black Ranger, but you didn't have any Black women come along in the series until, you know, a couple seasons later. And so you're sitting there and you're like, I want to play. But then the neighborhood kids are like, well, you can't be anybody because there are no Black girls. So
yeah, so you better just be something there on the side.
One of the monsters or something like that is usually, I'm like, really? That's what y'all... Okay, so we're about to fight, just so you're aware. Just so you're not caught off guard. Here come these hands. Like, so that's kind of how it was growing up.
when did Alice come to you? And I'm talking about the Alice in A Blade So Black, because so firstly, maybe you should explain why Alice in Wonderland meets Buffy meets this badass black girl.
So I really loved Buffy, because again, that geeky stuff, right? Um, there were monsters and vampires and all sorts of stuff, and you could fight it. And there's this girl who is older than me, but not like super older than me. So I could kind of place myself in her position. Like that's what we've always had to do as Black people. We've always had to relate to somebody else. That's just you grow up learning how to do that. But then, the seasons go along and you see one Slayer, she's Black, she's from like the 60s, 70s, and she gets killed
and then they
on a
did
subway.
her dirty.
And like there's the two of them. The first one, she gets killed on the subway by Spike, just so we can see how he gets his leather coat, right? Like that's the throwaway. So you mean to tell me that the only time you're gonna bring a Black woman Slayer into it is so that we know how Spike got? All right, whatever. And then we get an actual Black Slayer, and like you said, they did her dirty, which they always do us dirty. So seeing that made me want to see a character like Alice, with the powers, with the abilities, able to, slay these monsters left and right, no questions asked. Nobody's doubting that she belongs here. And Alice in Wonderland came about because in publishing, you're supposed to find like this fresh new take on whatever. And this was during a time where, thanks to Twilight, no hate to anybody who likes Twilight, I just can't rock with it. Vampires and werewolves aside, I can't get down. But if you can, do your thing. You do you. But that was happening, and vampires, publishing was like, we're sick of vampires, we're sick of werewolves. So I'm like, well, I need new monsters to fight, I guess. And so I had been watching Supernatural reruns, and they were fighting vampires, and they had made a Buffy reference. And earlier, Disney had said, hey, we're going to do a live action Alice in Wonderland, like that had been announced. And my immediate reaction to the Disney announcement was, nobody asked for this. Of all the movies to make, we're going to do Alice. Okay. So then, the wheels start turning, and I'm like, if this is live action, does that mean that Wonderland is a real place? And if Wonderland is a real place, does that mean the Jabberwocky is real? Jaws that bite and claws that catch. Is that a thing? Well, if it is, and I want to stick somebody there, they're going to have to deal with the Jabberwocky. So they need a weapon. And so I had this girl. I plopped her down. She just sort of showed up, and I gave her some weapons, and I wrote a fight scene, and I loved it. And I kept going, and then Addison Hatter shows up, and they start arguing with each other. And I'm like, all right, well, here are my two main characters. Let's go. And so I kept going, and it became this thing where it started with a what if. Most of my stories start with what ifs. And it ended up being, what if Buffy fell down the rabbit hole instead of Alice? Because it was modern. It wasn't some little girl having an acid trip under a tree or whatever the original Alice or whatever he was trying to do. I mean, I've read it, so I know, but listen, whatever she got, I want to know what she had.
That is like good drugs. Pandemic drugs. That's what we need.
That is God tier type stuff. I wouldn't mind it. But so I'm like, okay, let's do this thing. And so I started infusing of, bits and pieces of my family, like her mom. There were certain things in the YA books. I'm like, how are these kids running around, sneaking out at night, not coming home till 3 a.m.? Parents got no idea where they are, and ain't nobody getting their ass whooped. Like, this would not fly in my house. So,
in fact, I think it's very early on in A Blade So Black that she's actually like, I can't afford to mess up any more clothes. Like, I am not wealthy. These things that keep, like, I'm killing animals, they're all bleeding on me. I cannot afford this. That never comes up in YA.
No, she can't. She's like, I mean, it's not just that she can't keep coming up with excuses to tell her mom why her shoes are messed up again. You know, even if she was going off and buying them, her mom is gonna be like, so that's like the ninth pair this month. What are you doing? Giving these shoes away? And you have this thing where she has to lie to her mom, but her mom is still very much involved in her life, and she knows that something's going on. And people have asked the question, like, okay, so Alice has been doing this for a year now. How did her mom not know what's going on for a year? And it's like, well, that's because in the beginning, she didn't have to cross over into Wonderland all that much. Like, it slowly went from like 3 or 4 times a month to, you know, a couple times a week. And now as the story kicks off, it's happening like every other day. Like, it's starting to get more and more problematic. And she's like, maybe I need to cut this out before my mom takes me out this joint. Like, because that's exactly what would happen. So that was one of the things that always irritated me about YA, is that the parents are never around. These kids are able to go off and do whatever.
Yeah, the parents are always negligent, like super negligent.
They're either negligent, or they're in a coma, or they're dead, or they don't care. Like, and I'm like, it wouldn't have been that way in my house or the house of anybody else I know.
Yeah, especially since my dad used to have a rule that when the sun comes down, who's going to come close the curtains and switch the lights on? I'm like, literally anybody in this house could do that. But that was my job. So I couldn't be running around in Wonderland when the sun was going down, because my dad would be sitting in a dark house, curtains open, no lights on, just to spite me.
It's one of those things where it's like, I have responsibilities. Like, I get it. I'm supposed to be saving the world. But have you met my mom? Like, ain't nobody gonna get saved if I get taken out. So let me go. It's like, me appeasing my mother is actually me saving the world, because Black moms are entirely something else. I tell you what.
So I have to ask you, you work on this thing for so long, it goes out into the world, and it gets put in a category called urban fantasy. How do you feel about that category, urban fantasy? Because that urban is not just saying, oh, other fantasy is rural. It is loaded. That word urban.
I come at it from two minds, because for me, urban fantasy, again, I never saw myself in it. So in the beginning, it literally meant taking place in a cityscape or something close to a cityscape. And it was mostly white dudes running around doing magic and killing stuff. Like, that is what I grew up with as urban fantasy. And then you start having the thing where people, like, urban means Black for people. Like, that's just the way it is. So on the one hand, I'm like, I understand what it means as a genre. But on the other hand, I'm like, so, okay, let's say that I accept this ridiculousness and I don't choke you out right now by calling it urban fantasy. Where are the Black people? Where are the Black people? Like, you can't. So I've accepted it with the notion that I'm going to define it the way that I want to define it. You're not going to change it now that Black people are actually getting involved. Because there's this whole thing where if there's any Black people and there's any fantastical elements, then it's automatically urban fantasy. And I was talking with a good friend of mine, Bethany C. Morrow, about her recent release, A Song Below Water. And she was like, people are calling it urban fantasy. But it's not, because it's not a city. It just happens to have Black people and fantasy in it. So it's one of those things where, once again, we have to re-educate people about what it actually means versus what they're trying to tell us it means. And so I get irritated with it. And I'm like, you know what? Just call it an Alice in Wonderland reimagining. That way you don't even have to deal with the rest of that.
Yeah, that's true. And then they're not in danger of being choked out by you. So that's safe and sensible.
Right. Because again, like, urban fantasy, the actual urban fantasy, even though didn't see myself in it, was my first love into fantasy, because I love it when you have this mystical world that runs parallel with the actual world. and cityscapes like Atlanta, like in A Blade So Black, or Chicago, or New York, or London, or just these big sprawling, just cityscapes where it's like, how there are millions of people and vampires haven't been noticed somehow, but it's happening. Like, that was where I fell in love with fantasy. I enjoy wizards and like Gandalf and them, they cool and all, but my favorite is when it interacts with the actual contemporary world. So again, it's one of those things where it's like, why I gotta come in and ruin stuff with your racism? Like, why just let us have the things that everybody else gets. Don't try and make it different now that we're getting a hold of it. Don't try and move the goalposts now that we're coming in and doing stuff with it. No,
Yeah.
we gon' anyway.
Okay, so I think we have enough people here now, because I said there's just going to be like a little reading from A Blade So Black. So, you ready?
Yes. I've got it here. Well, actually, this is the art, because my physical versions are in a box out in my living room. But the first chapter, or the prologue, as it were, is the same. So this is the very, very beginning. And it starts with a quote from Lewis Carroll that says, "Begin at the beginning and go on till you come to the end. Then stop." Prologue, Curiouser. Alice couldn't cry. She couldn't scream. All she could do was run. Her boots slapped the vinyl floor. Light flickered in the red leather. Someone shouted her name. Maybe her mother. Maybe a nurse. A hurricane of rushing blood, and her thrashing heart wailed in her ears. Out. She had to get out. A feeling like a hammer beating at the inside of her skull made everything fuzzy. She didn't see the white man in the middle of the hall until she was on top of him, but she couldn't stop. It was like hitting a wall. Then they both hit the ground. The smell of bleach coated her throat. She fought to untangle herself from him. "Damn it, kid, hold on a second." "Alice." Mom's voice chased her past the lobby and through the sliding glass doors. "Get out." Bright red letters danced in puddles, peppering the concrete. Emergency. Grady towered over her, casting a shadow across the night. Warm water misted her skin and hung in the air, a rain that wasn't really committed to falling. She raced into the street. A car swerved to avoid her, horn blaring and headlights flashing. "You crazy?" the driver hollered at her back. Alice had no idea where she was going. She just ran. Past parking garages and a couple shops. Squat beige buildings lined the street, the GSU campus. She kept going. He was okay. And she ran. All day he was fine. Why did he do this? And ran. Why did he leave me? Her lungs kicked at her rib cage, strangled by the hollow feeling clawing at her chest. Her legs pumped until the burn in her stomach rolled to her feet. When they refused to carry her any further, she dropped to the ground. Water soaked her gloves. Dirt stained the white fabric. Uneven asphalt dug into her knees, scraping them as she crawled the last few feet to sink against a wall. Tears and snot ran down her face. Daddy. But he was gone. Dead. "Poor child," someone nearby whispered, the words dragging across their tongue in a growl. So alone, so afraid. Panting around hiccups, Alice shook her head, her face in her hands. "Go away." "Oh, I can't just leave you. Not when your fear is so inviting." Alice lifted her head, blinking away tears to search the emptiness around her. She was in an alley, God knows where. Her tears made it hard to see. Snot and the stink of something sour made it hard to breathe. "I can take it away." The darkness shifted, with movement deeper in the alley, coming towards her. "Let me help you." A dog stepped into what light reached her. Huge paws ended with long, wicked claws that clacked against the ground. Alice's eyes widened at the size of it. Black skin, no fur, rippled as it moved. Illuminated eyes blinked at her, one pair, then two, and three. Lips curled in a flash of teeth the size of her fingers. The trembling in Alice's gut rippled through the rest of her. She screamed. It lunged. Teeth snapped shut just inches shy of her face. Drool that smelled like rotten meat splashed across her chest and cheeks. She scrambled backwards, trying to call for help. The words choked in a wail. The roughness of the brick at her back caught in her clothes and scraped her skin. She was trapped. But instead of lunging, the creature collapsed and flailed, ripping at the ground. Traitor, it shrieked. Yeah. The air quivered, steeped in shadow that seemed to recoil as a white boy stepped into view. He gripped the end of something sticking out of the monster's back. A sword, Alice realized. The thunder of her heartbeat against her skull sharpened. What little light that managed to thread the gloom hovered along the length of the blade, as if afraid or unable to touch it. You will suffer. You will all suffer. Pinned to the ground, the monster thrashed. Yellow blood slid along the blade, coating the onyxed metal, dripping onto the ground beneath it. What's that? I couldn't hear you over the sound of the boy pulled the sword free, then drove it in again with a slurch. Alice jerked. So did the monster. Then it fell still, the glow in its eyes slowly fading. Stepping over the body, the boy wiped his sword clean, then slid it into the sheath over his shoulder. As the hilt clicked into place, light poured in from the street, saturating the alley. She hadn't even noticed it gone out. Confused, Alice blinked against the stinging bright, trying to focus on what and who was in front of her. Dark jeans, boots, a purple t-shirt with the words, "We're all mad here," scrawled across the front. He looked like a regular dude, with a weapon strapped to his back. She didn't realize she was staring until the beast's body jolted with a loud pop, startling her. Its leathery skin bubbled and folded, shrinking in. A smell like old milk and mold filled the air. She gagged, her stomach roiling. Oh my God, there really was a dead monster, and she was going to be sick. Unfolding his lithe frame from a crouch, the boy turned to go, though paused as if noticing her for the first time. Blinking, he shifted to the left, then to the right as Alice watched. You see me? He had an accent, sounded English. It took a second for Alice to realize he was speaking to her. She nodded, her eyes darting between him and the dissolving creature. It was nearly gone. Curiouser. He tilted his head to the side and then took a step forward.
That is how you draw people in. In fact, Ndegwa is saying, I'm learning so much showing technique through her words. Damn, she shows. So I'm going to start taking questions because I always get accused of ignoring people's questions because I get so caught up in the conversation. So I'm going to start with James. Guys, if you have questions, can you please just ask them again because I don't know what's happening. Okay. So James wants to know what the effect of the Juneteenth Book Festival was in Black writing.
I think it brought a lot of focus into a lot of the issues that were affecting Black authors in publishing, because it was just Black authors. Like every panel featured Black authors, was moderated by Black people. It was everybody Black, as Issa Rae says. Root for everybody Black. And so people, they talked about craft and they talked about, workshop things and stories, stuff we normally don't get to talk about, because we're normally pulled in to do the diversity panels, whatever. But there was some talk about diversity, but it didn't take center stage. And we had fun and we laughed. It was very easygoing, but a lot of issues were brought up. And this had happened after the Publishing Paid Me hashtag had been a thing a couple of weeks earlier. So everyone was talking about what was going on, and people tuned in, and I think really started to listen, potentially for the first time for a lot of them, if we're going to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think the Juneteenth Book Fest had the effect that it had because of what was and still is going on in the world right now. Like, it sucks that it takes Black people dead and dying in the street for us to be noticed in other walks of our lives outside of our pain.
Yeah.
Because, people like to make their clicks and their I'm sorry's and here's my black square on Instagram. Ooh, there's your activism for the day. So I think it just said that we need you to pay attention to all of us. We're more than what's going on. See us and hear us in every aspect of who we are. That way you can't ignore us when these things happen.
So, we're talking about being seen and acknowledged, and we've spoken about all that other stuff, but I want to talk about being seen in a good, positive way that like leaves you feeling warm for days afterwards. And I want you to share maybe one or two experiences that had you just totally gobsmacked when, like a good positive reinforcement from readers, from other writers, just two experiences.
There was one experience in particular, and this was before the book even came out. And I'm going to see if I can't find, where would I have put it? I have stuff all over the place, so don't mind me as I look around trying to find things. Yeah, there it is. Okay, here we go. So the book was announced January of 2017. And it wasn't going to come out until fall of 2018. Well, with the announcement, I posted a picture on Twitter. And I've got one of the pictures right here. I'll show you guys. It was done by a friend, Molly Owen. She wrote The Merciful Crow, which is an amazing book. And she drew me this picture of Alice for my birthday the year previous. So I posted this picture on Twitter of Alice just standing in Wonderland, looking badass, doing what she does.
Yeah.
And this girl, this teenager, she messages me and she goes, I cannot wait for this book. This is the first time I've seen a book in the genres that I like to read where she had my skin and she had my hair. Thank you so much. I saw the picture and I read the description and I cried. This is what she told me. And hearing something like that, or hearing when a reader is like, there was so much of me in this book that I didn't know could be in this book. Thank you. So hearing from readers, especially Black kids, especially Black girls, because that's my audience. With these books is the Black girls. It's young Elle. It's future Black girls who will read the books and want to play Power Rangers, but you can't do that. There's no Black girls. Well, here's a Black girl for you to play. So that
you can kick the Power Rangers' ass.
Right, she certainly can. So those are the things that warm my heart, is just hearing from readers who are like, I didn't see myself in this genre until now.
So somebody, I don't know if it was Ndegwa, said, we're not talking about the elephant in the room, which is that sword behind you. So please allay people's fears that you're not chopping people up with that sword. Tell us about the sword behind you.
So that is one of many. Because again, geek. Now I'm gonna move stuff around because I only have 3 in here. So that sword is actually the sword from Lord of the Rings. It's a mock-up, but it's full on metal. It's heavy, and if it was to be sharpened, it could hurt somebody. Next to it are Legolas's daggers. So I have the poster of the character and then the weapon beneath them, because I collect replica weapons from the geeky things that I enjoy. I'm gonna try and put, oh geez, I had it. It was perfect, and I went and messed with it. It's fine. It's okay. We'll make it work. So I collect replica weapons. Don't fall.
Well, I have to tell you, my best friend is sitting just a little distance away. So you didn't hear her go when you spoke about Legolas's daggers. She loves Lord of the Rings. She actually made a little noise here next to me.
I love
You are
like
living
those are
the
I love those.
dream.
I have 17 replica weapons throughout my apartment. So there are those. I have the God Killer from Wonder Woman hanging out in my living room. I have a Keyblade from the Kingdom Hearts series. I have kukri knives from The Walking Dead. I have Masamune, which is a sword that's taller than I am. This sword is like 6.5 feet long from Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. It's heavy. And yes,
You are
Danielle, I do
serious.
stay ready to fight. I am so serious. I have weapons everywhere in my house. Um, one of my favorite things is when I first moved into this apartment, a maintenance man comes in and he's like, "This is really cool, but I pray for anybody who comes here looking for trouble." And it's like, yeah, I feel sorry for him too, because at any point, something that I could use to defend myself and throw more than hands is within grabbing distance. So
I love that you
I
still
have the sword of
depend on
Gryffindor in
hands.
my bedroom. I have weapons everywhere.
I love that. So I have to ask you this question because this is a festival question, and Zukiso actually posted this. She says, Booker winner Bernadine Evaristo recently told The Guardian that she has sex 8 times a day when she isn't feeling amorous. And Zuki wants to know, how often do you have sex when you're writing books, Elle? This is in a day,
Wale,
by the way. A day, not just
I'm
in a month.
I'm by myself. So plus, I mean, COVID is a thing right now, and I wasn't a people person before COVID.
Uh-huh.
So at this point, it's like, don't come near me, don't touch me, don't even look at me. Like that's how I am right now.
Yeah.
Um, During drafting, I don't know. I'm very in me and my world in my head. Like a whole week will pass before I look up and realize I maybe should have eaten something. Like that's literally what'll happen is I can go like if you there are friends who will get on me for not eating if I'm in the zone. So that's how I mark when I'm drafting is did I have a meal today? Like I have my bottle of water, next to me, but I'll forget to eat sometimes and just be going. But yeah, I'm very averse to physical affection. So
Okay, so it's not 8 times a day. Listen, I don't believe her. I'm sorry. I just don't believe her. There's only 24 hours in a day. You spend what? 8 of that sleeping. The rest you have to be going places or doing stuff 8 times a day.
well, I mean, I guess that all depends on the stamina of other folks involved. So it might be
Okay.
possible.
We have another festival question, which is Coca Poetry, who has the best lines? As in cocaine or poetry, who has the best lines?
I don't have any personal experience with cocaine. I do have personal experience with poetry. So I'm going to defer to poetry just because of my lack of experience. Because that would be like, hey, do you like kale versus lettuce? And I'm like, I've never eaten kale. It smells weird. I don't want nothing to do with it. So I'm going to say lettuce. I mean, maybe cocaine smells weird as well. I don't know.
You know what? We're in the same boat here. I've never had Coke either, and I just don't know if I'm a poetry person. So I would have said none of the above. And then there's one other festival question, which is rosé or prosecco.
Okay, so Adib Karam, who is another author, he wrote Darius the Great is Not Okay, introduced me to which is
Frosé.
Froze, which is like if you took a slushy, but it was rosé, somehow it's icy and cold and like so if it's froze, I'll say it's rosé. But if it's just, regular chilled, I'll go with Prosecco.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
So this is like in a blender, you put rosé and ice, and you just
Yes.
kind of blend it, and it's a slushy.
Yes. Rose ice. If you want to, you can throw a little bit of fruit in there. You can throw whatever it is you want. It was delicious. When I tell you it was so good. But yes, if it can be a froze, I'll take a froze. Otherwise, I'll take Prosecco.
Okay, see, I'm writing this down because I'm gonna look for a frosé recipe. So
So good?
the theme of the festival is journey, and I know there are a lot of people who maybe are here or will watch this later who really look up to you because very soon you've got Nubia with DC coming, right? Very soon.
Yes, yes.
We're going to talk about that. But before we get to working with DC, the journey from that first page you wrote of A Blade So Black and this place here, or even before that, the rejections that came with that. Let's talk about the journey.
Yes. So like I said, I've been telling stories since I was, wee thing. I stopped writing when I was 14 because of that English teacher. And I didn't write again until college. Now, once again, no hate to the people who enjoyed Twilight. I did not. However, Twilight is the reason why I got back into writing again, because it came down to a thing where it was like, you know what? If she can do it, I can do it. Like after reading the book and then the movies, I was like, we're just gonna not be. If she can pull that off, I know I damn well I can do it. So that's how I got started. And like I said, um the first three books that I wrote were about white boys because I thought that's what you had to write in order to be published because that's what I read.
Yeah.
Percy Jackson, Harry Potter back before J.K. Rowling. Anyway, all that. And so it wasn't until later on that I decided that I was going to let myself be the hero. Now, I queried those three books, got representation on the first two. My first agent left the business. Like she went to become a writer. So I ended up going back into querying. Well, because she had already taken that book out on submission with editors, one of which who kept it for a year trying to get it acquired, but couldn't quite get it. I ended up having to write another book because, coming back and saying, hey, here's a book that's kind of already been seen, but not really, wasn't a thing to do back then. So this
Yeah.
is before people were like buying books off of Wattpad and stuff. Before you could be like, hey, come look at this thing that's already published. It's doing numbers. Maybe you can get a bag or two. So after that, I had a second agent who wasn't even an agent when I started writing. She didn't become an agent until about a year before I queried her. So I always tell people to keep going because the agent who took on Alice wasn't an agent when I started writing Alice. She wasn't an agent when I finished writing Alice. If I
Yeah.
had stopped at any point, probably wouldn't have happened. And then we were on submission for 2 years. We went out in late 2014. And we were on submission for 2 years. We got lots of feedback. People loved the book, but couldn't make it work. We've all heard it, because there's the stories of we've got the Black girl book for the year, or we've got our Latino boy book for the year. We've got we can only have one for whatever reason. You only get one.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got 90 different versions of Little Women running around out here, but I digress. I'm just saying. I'm happy. I can't wait for Bethany C. Morrow's remix of Little Women because I'm so sick of these little white girls during Civil War. I was so tired. I'm always tired. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of Bronte sisters. I'm tired of Pride and Prejudice woman. Like, stop. Stop. I don't care. Mr. Darcy is overrated. Anyway.
Okay, so yeah, but fuck Mr. Darcy. Anyway, though, somebody asked, "What are your favorite YA books by Black women?" Before we talk about DC, because I think we've got like 10 minutes. So tell us about your fave YA books by Black women.
I love The Bells by Danielle Clayton, because it's fantasy and it's rich and it's intoxicating. Like the way that she describes things. It makes you hungry, for one, because everything is food, right? Like it's all food, but it's decadent food, and it's just, I don't know, I can't describe it. And it was the first time, well, it was the first time where I say it counted, where we got to see a Black girl on a cover in a big ball gown, because that was like all the rage in YA, right? You got the girls with the ball gowns, and then Danielle was the first Black woman to have a Black girl on a cover with her ball gown. So I love those books. Again, I love A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. Read that one. I love, it's not out yet, but Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. My whole heart right now. Oh my God, you guys, this book is amazing. It's so good.
Putting it on the list right now.
Yes, get it. It's so good. There are other books that are out right now that I have, but I haven't gotten to read yet, just because I've been busy. Cinderella is Dead, Song of Rapes and Ruin, The Gilded Ones. Oh God, I'm trying to remember because it's, of course, now that I'm on the spot, the names are jumping out of my head. But there's just YA Black women in fantasy right now is bigger than it has been.
Yeah.
But still not big enough, because it's still, there's like a dozen. There's a dozen of us doing it right now. We went from only 4 being published.
50 years. We need a good 50 years to catch up, maybe even more.
I mean, at this point, I'm like, look, why don't everybody else, y'all go sit down in the corner, and we just do nothing but Black fantasy for like a decade. When we catch up, then we can go back to business as usual. If you really bout it, But no, you still want to be part of this. Okay, whatever, I guess.
So we have like
few.
Okay, we have 7 minutes left, and I really want to talk about Nubia. So Zukisa asked DC or Marvel, and I'm just going to go ahead and guess that both, because that's what nerds do. But I want to hear about Nubia before we run out of time.
So I tweeted one day, I want to write for Young Justice, because there was this show, Young Justice, that came on like almost 10 years ago that I fell in love with. And I was like, I want to do the thing. So a DC executive is like, let's talk. So we start talking in messages, and they're like, here, pitch us something for Young Justice. And I did. And me being the Nubia fan that I was like, you know what, I'm going to sneak Nubia in here. They've been doing Nubia wrong for years. I'm going to show them. I'm going to put Nubia in this Young Justice pitch. And so I did. And they loved her and what I had done with her, because I had aged her down, still made her Wonder Woman's twin sister. But that's how that happens is, I won't spoil it. But she's still Wonder Woman's twin sister, because what happened in the continuity is she went from being Wonder Woman's twin sister, the only person who could put Wonder Woman on her ass every single time, by the way, to just being a regular Amazon, which Amazons are amazing. But
well, you know why they did that?
I don't. Crisis is a lot. Crisis is and then 50.
So when is Nubia out? When can we expect Nubia?
Out February 2nd of next year. So what?
See how I'm writing this down?
October, 2nd. November, December. So 6 months. February 2nd. You can pre-order it now at bookstores, at comic shops, at Barnes and Noble, I think at Watersons. Maybe, I'm not entirely sure. They don't give me all the links all the time. But it's so amazing to be able to bring this iconic character back into the fold see her be this whole person, that like her original story had been denied by the people who created her for decades. And she popped up a few times here and there. And then of course, she was the DC. She was the Wonder Woman in that alternative world, with the Black Superman and crew. But I don't know. I always had a soft spot for the original Nubia, who was Wonder Woman's equal, and in my opinion, her better in every way.
Hey, so Al, I'm gonna let you go soon, but I can't let you go without telling you this, that from one Black girl nerd to another, you are goals. You are killing it. The way you handle people who try you and the way you handle your work is nothing short of inspirational. You are the shit, Al. And
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to see what you're doing with Nubia. I can't wait to see all of your other stuff. We love you. So whenever you're feeling down, know that a crazy chick in Cape Town is crazy about you. I love you. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Thank you.
And if you want to send me a signed copy of Nubia, I can send you my details.
Listen, I don't know. I'm trying to figure, because I have had so many people be like, so do you get arcs? Like, you get the arc of
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how graphic novels work. But I may have to, put people who put me on. I gotta return the favor. I gotta do something for the people who help me out. Who put me in front of the people, who get me new readers and such. This is how it works. Lift as you climb.
There's so many people in the comments just saying how much they love you and how great you are. So I hope you're taking all of this in. Just take it all in.
Bath. I'm a bath. This is set the tone for the rest of my week. You're not gonna be able to tell me nothing. So yes.
Thank you so much, Al. I'm gonna let you go, but again, you should just see these comments. They love you. We love you. You're loved.
Thank you. Love you guys too. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Al. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for your comments. I'm sorry if I didn't get to all of them. I need to end this so I can save it to, IG Live. Bye, Al.